Hey guys, Zapdos here bringing you a UU battle. That's right, I've also got a UU team now. Looking at my opponent's team, potential threats? I don't frickin' know, this is UU, not Little Cup. But, in all seriousness, let me tell you about my team instead. I've got a Choice Scarf Victini to fire off those Adamant V-Creates, which will completely annihilate just about everything except for Chandelure and Slowbro. A very special Zapdos that I won't tell you guys what it is yet, I want you to see for yourself. A physically defensive Shelgon, I know, why am I using NU in UU, but it actually fits with the team pretty well. An Empoleon, which I kinda messed up on, it's supposed to be Papaya Berry, but I accidentally gave it leftovers, so yeah. And a Bronzor, which just pretty much sets up Stealth Rocks as Hitmontop spins them away. But it's not the ordinary Hitmontop. You'll see. Also, about the Victini, I brought the wrong one. Apparently, it's got Fusion Bolt, not Bolt Strike. How did that even happen? I don't know. Anyway, let's get into the battle. So my opponent is AndersQ, who I met on the Smogon Wi-Fi-Battle Finder. And this is actually a pretty long battle, like, what was it, 68, 64 turns? I don't know. Anyway, he goes into his Ambipom as I go into my Victini, switch out into my Bell, my Bronzor, or not Bronzor, Bronzong, because I know the Cake Out is coming, and I figure it's a good time to set up Stealth Rock as he U-turns out and goes into his slow homie. Wow, this is hard talking this fast. So I do go for the Stealth Rocks, I'm gonna switch out and go into my Gloria, as he goes for Fire Blast, which is interesting. I actually didn't know they ran Fire Blast, so it's neutrally effective, and now I see that Gloria's got leftovers, which I did not mean to put on her. I meant to put a Papaya Berry, because the set works best with Papaya Berry. I go for the Grass Knot on the Slowpoke, however he switches into his Zapdos, which is actually a pretty big threat. I did not realize how big a threat it was, even considering I used one myself. Anyway, he goes for Discharge, so I switch into Shelgon, and he gets a crit on the switch, which isn't too bad, and he goes for Roar as I go for Wish. And I really don't mind anything that might get that Wish, really at all. So I switch into Victini, and it gets the Witch, which is nice. And he goes into a slow homie as I go for U-turn, predicting the Chandelure because I don't want that thing to get a Flash Fire boost. So now I'm going to go back into my Gloria just to kind of rinse and repeat, except this time I'm going to go for a Substitute, and, you know, I can't really do anything against this Frisian. I really don't know what it's going to do. I just switch into my Victini because I figure it's the best choice. As he goes for Leaf Blade, and I guess he could have predicted that going for Stone Edge, because during the battle I looked it up, and it does get Stone Edge, or that's a common set, so I guess that could have been really bad. Anyway, he goes into his slow homie. As I go in my Victini, I U-turn out into my my Zapdos, as he goes into his Zaptress, his Zapdos, which is kind of weird. Anyway, I go for the Substitute, and I completely forget this thing has Roar, and I'm just going to go for the Charge Beam, as he's going to go for the Roost, and here I should have gone for, like, my other move. I'll tell you what it is when you see it. So I just foolishly go for the Charge Beam, again, forgetting this thing has Roar. He goes for the Roar and switches me into my Empoleon. And I do not want to stay in against this thing, so I have to switch out again, as he switches into his Spexlure, his Chandelure. So I actually go into Victini, just for the heck of it, because I knew it could take one hit, which is really weird, and I just go for U-turn because I want to switch out. And he goes for Shadow Ball, and it hits my Gloria, not very effective. And it's just not going to do that much. So here, he's going to switch into his Zaptress as I go for the Hydro Pump, and that does a lot, but not quite as much as I'd like it to. And I know he's going to be faster, he's just going to roost off the damage. So I figured I can try and see how much another Hydro Pump will do. It probably won't do that much, and I'm right, it's not a 50% or anything, he can just keep roost stalling me. So I'm going to pull back and go into my Victini again, which really is the just huge hitter of this team. So I really don't know what to do against the Zapdos because it's just stalling me out so much. So I decided to go for the Fusion Bolt. Again, Bolt Strike would have helped so much right now. As I see the Discharge, and I'm like, no, you're not paralyzing that. So I go into my Zapdos, he goes for the Discharge, and what did I tell you? He gets the Parahacks. So now, he's going to go for another Discharge as I just go for the Roost, because I really don't see how I'm going to do anything to this thing yet. I'm kind of just hoping for a random Roar, because I don't want to try and switch out into something. So I'm going to go for the Hidden Power. It is Hidden Power Ice. If I had just gone for Hidden Power Ice on the first time, I doubt I would have been able to KO, but I would have gotten it into Revenge Killing range. He goes for a Roost, as I go for a Roost, because I'm doing the math here, and it looks like I'll be able to take about 2 discharges. So I go for another Charge Beam just for the heck of it. He finally goes for Roar, and he roars me out into the perfect thing, Bell, my Bronzong, which means as he goes for Heat Wave, yeah, sure, that sucks, but it doesn't do that much, and I can go for Toxic, which is what I really wanted. which means now I can just Toxic Stall this thing. So I'm going to switch out, go into my Shelgon for just the heck of it. He goes for Discharge, and he gets the Parahacks again. So here, this is just really sucks. He's going to go into his Mobile, his Virizion, as I'm paralyzed fully. He goes for a Swords Dance, I'm still fully paralyzed. He goes for another Swords Dance, I'm still fully paralyzed. And he goes for Stone Edge. Look at that, +4 Stone Edge, still can't do a thing to me. So I go for Protect, he goes for the Close Combat. I think that's actually +6, no, it was +4. He goes for the Swords Dance, and as I go for the Wish, I probably should have gone for the Protect this turn instead. Maybe that way I could have like gotten off a Toxic or something, because there was no way I was going to survive that. So that was essentially a wasted Wish. So I switch into my Victini as he goes into his Specs Lure, gets the Flash Fire boost, which I did not want. I go into Gloria since its whole set is pretty much ruined now, which means I don't have really much of a use for it. So I go into my what? And I go for a Sucker Punch. That's right, Sucker Punch. This isn't the average Slowpoke, or not Slowpoke. He just sent it out Slowpoke. This isn't the average Hitmontop. He goes for T-Wave, as I go for the Substitute. And I go for the Sucker Punch, expecting the attack, but he doesn't go for the attack, you know, whatever. And he's going to pull back and go into his Campion, which is a really, really bad name. And I'm thinking, you know, whatever, just go for the Close Combat. And his Fake Out actually breaks my sub, which isn't too surprising, but I was not expecting it. So I go for the Close Combat, take out his sub, and he sends out his Slow Homie again. And here, I'm just going to go for another sub as he goes for a Scald. I just kind of want to scout to see if he's really going to attack or not. So he breaks my sub again, and I'm going to have to pull back, go into my Zapdos, and he goes for a Thunder Wave, but I'm already fully paralyzed, so I don't care. So he goes into his Ballotran, I guess that's how you say it. And I'm going to pull back and go in my Victini, and it's a Hidden Power Ice. It's a critical hit, but still, yes. I go for the V-Create, just not caring anymore. Even if Slowbro comes in, I'll just switch out to my Zapdos. I take down his Meloetta, and it is gone. He goes into his Slow Homie, and I'm going to pull back, go into my Zapdos again, as he's going to go for the Thunder Wave. I'm already fully paralyzed, does not matter. He's going to pull back, go into his Mobile again, his Virizion, as I go for the Charge Beam. And I'm not too afraid of this thing, because I do have a bit of defense. I'm not physically defensive, but I do have a bit. So I'm going to go for the Hidden Power and see how much it does. And that does a lot. I mean, seriously, I can take it out with the next hit. So I'm going to pull back and go into my Bell just to knock it out with maybe what's it called? A Gyro Ball. There we go. He goes for the Close Combat, and it takes me down. It takes me down in the red. I go for the Gyro Ball. I knock it out, and that is a dead Virizion. So he goes into his Slow Homie, and I don't care. Bell has done more than its job. He is dismissed. He gets a critical hit, which is nice that it's wasted on Bronzong since it was going to die to a regular hit. So I send in my Victini, go for the U-turn, and I send out Fresh again. So he's going to go for the Scald, and it's going to get me down pretty low. And I'm thinking I can survive one more and just go for the Roost. He's going to pull back, go into his Zaptress, and I'm going to go for that Roost. Going to get my HP back, and now that it's poisoned, I can actually stall this thing out. So I feel pretty confident about that. And, you know, maybe get off a little bit of damage too. He goes for the Roost, and I kind of want to just kill this thing. I go for the Hidden Power, but thanks to that Roost, you know, it's not going to do any damage. And I'm going to just keep going for these Hidden Powers, or at least I think I am. Oh, no, I actually go for the Charge Beam. I thought I would just keep going for Hidden Powers. Anyway, at this point, it's just literally a stall battle. Trying to get this thing down to a range where I can either Revenge Kill it with something else, or maybe it'll die to Stealth Rocks or something else. I know he's not going to let that happen, but still, I can hope. So he goes for another Roost, and I'm fully paralyzed, which is pretty good, because I actually went for Substitute that turn. I remember that specifically, because it's like, Anyway, I go for Sub, and he goes for Roar, which is like, why does he always sub when I roar? Anyway, he's going to pull back, go into his Slow Homie, and I'm going to go for the Fusion Bolt, because I figured that would have done a lot to Zapdos when I thought it was Bolt Strike. I kept thinking it was Bolt Strike, but then I look later and it's like, oh crud, this thing is Fusion Bolt. And I don't know how that happened. Anyway, he gets a crit and takes my Fresh down to KO range, and because I'm paralyzed, I'm going to be slower than a Slowbro, which is pretty sad. And I'm going to go into Victini and just U-turn just to get off just a little bit more damage. So I go into my Hitmontop, and this Scald isn't really going to do anything. And I'm kind of going to go for the sub because I bet he's expecting me to Sucker Punch. So, going to go for the sub, and I go for the Sucker Punch. Why did I go for Sucker Punch? Sub would have been such a better idea. Anyway, here I predict the Roost, and I'm going to go for the Close Combat because I know that that's going to be literally the best option. Why didn't I go for Close Combat just then? Wow, this must have been pretty late in the game because it's like these are the moves that I'd be thinking that I'd do, but apparently I don't do them. I go for the Close Combat afterwards as he goes for the Roar. And now this is where the battle is thankfully going to end because he's going to pull back his Zapdos, go into his slow homie, and thankfully from that range of HP, Fusion Bolt is going to be enough to 2-hit KO it. So I'm going to go for the Fusion Bolt, it's going to die, his Zapdos is going to come in, die to the rocks, and that's going to be the end of the battle. Oh man, my mouth was tired after that battle. So, talk of the day. Today's talk of the day, I'm going to be streaming! So, the time, it's going to be at noon Pacific time, and it's going to be on the 15th. So yeah, be there.